Hello everyone, you are listening to Scenecraft. From opening shots to long takes and epilogues, we examine our favorite scenes from cinema here on the podcast. I'm Cody, here with my fellow sinners,
Mark
and Connor.
You can find Scenecraft on most social media platforms at Scenecraft Podcast for the latest news on the show. Today we'll be discussing Ryan Coogler's newest release, Sinners. But as usual, let's begin with our brief What We've Been Watching segment, Quick Takes.
Speak quickly.
Quickly, thank you.
Quickly, come on. Hurry up, quicker.
Way quicker.
Okay, I'll say it fast.
What have you guys been watching?
I'm going to change things up a little bit here.
Oh, okay.
Going to take a note out of Connor's quick take section and kind of do something, a little bit of a theme here. As you guys both know, I grew up playing hockey throughout middle school and high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd like to start off with a little analogy, if you will. In hockey, there is a term called the 5-hole. Are either of you guys familiar with it?
I am, yes.
Okay. Cody?
No. You think I'm familiar?
Okay. Let me explain. So the 5-hole, it's a space between the goalie's legs where a player can sneak the puck through and score. And it's a critical spot because it's one of the toughest to defend. It takes quick reflexes and perfect positioning to block it. So if I were to have a 5-hole in my film tastes, it would definitely be movies with simple, juicy premises. I just find myself unable to resist them in a lot of ways. And I know I probably should defend against it, but every time I kind of let a few pucks slip right by. So it's a weak spot of mine, but I've kind of grown to love it over time. So with that,
It better be hockey-themed movies.
Hockey movies only from this point.
Yeah.
well, the first movie is called Drop.
Okay.
And you drop a puck, I guess, so that kind of works. It was directed by Christopher Landon, and it was released in 2025. The logline reads, "A widowed mother's first date in years takes a terrifying turn when she's bombarded with anonymous threatening messages on her phone during their upscale dinner. She's left to question if her charming date is behind the harassment." So it's a simple premise. It's a simple movie. Essentially, it's Megan Fahey, who I recognize from The White Lotus Season 2. She was great in that.
Mm-hmm.
And she receives these increasingly threatening messages while out on a date via airdrop.
Oh.
Have you guys ever been in a public place before where you're randomly airdropped photos from a stranger?
Yeah. It's happened to me on a plane.
Yeah, like on a train.
On a plane for me too, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't. Did you open it or did you reject it?
I think I've rejected it every time because I'm like, it's probably, like a 72-year-old woman who like couldn't figure out how to
Accidentally did it.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know where that was going to go. Okay.
Oh, no.
So I think there's something frighteningly plausible about this setup that made me easily cough up the admission price to go see how it ended. And overall, the film was solid. It's nothing revolutionary, but it's a fun, twisty little thriller. And movies like these just live or die by how relatable the main character's decisions are. If it feels like they're making stupid decisions just to advance the plot, the whole thing kind of rings phony to me. But in Drop, Megan Fahey is actually pretty clever and makes some sensible decisions. So I really enjoyed it. It's not going to win any awards, but I think Drop is a serviceable entry in the thriller genre, and it would make a fun date night movie.
Okay.
So I would recommend Drop, which is now streaming on VOD.
Nice. I think when I saw the trailer for this one, I thought to myself, like, isn't this just Carry On?
But yeah, I mean, it kind of is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this one has a little bit of a darker tone.
Uh-huh. It looked more heightened.
Yes. Yeah. And kind of more realistic in some ways, but in
Okay.
some ways not. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just another film in the long line of high concept thrillers that have been coming out recently that, Mark, I feel like you are very good at plucking those out of obscurity.
Case in point, Trap. It's like Exhibit A.
Yeah. That was like a bullseye for me, for sure. Yeah.
Cool.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. The other movie I watched was Novocaine, which was directed by Dan Burke and Robert Olson, was released this year, 2025. And the logline reads, when the girl of his dreams is kidnapped, a man incapable of feeling physical pain turns his rare condition into an unexpected advantage in the fight to rescue her. So once again, another simple premise. This one stars Jake Quaid as the main character, who I thought did a great job in Companion, which was released earlier this year, and Amber Midthunder, who you guys may recognize from Prey, which was the Predator sequel that released during the pandemic directly onto Hulu. That was actually very, very good.
Cool.
Yeah, so it was nice seeing them both in this. This movie starts off as a rom-com, and then it slowly morphs into an action thriller. And with my field of work, I encounter a lot of patients that have neuropathy, which usually manifests itself as a lack of feeling. And in my field, it's primarily in the feet. So it was interesting to see a different form of neuropathy portrayed on the big screen while highlighting some of the potential advantages and disadvantages that come from the condition. Simply put, we experience pain for a reason, right? And so it's to keep us away from dangerous situations. So my wife and I actually really enjoyed this one, but I'm not going to lie. I did sometimes wonder who this movie was made for, only because it gets pretty brutal in its depiction of bodily harm. And I could see that turning away some people from this one. But once again, I feel like this one's a pretty easy movie to recommend as long as you are prepared to look away from the screen a few times.
Okay.
So I would recommend checking out Novocaine, which is streaming on Paramount Plus.
Mark, you texted me about harm to a particular body part that I'm very sensitive about. Might be attached to your hands. Maybe not. Yeah, I will not be watching that scene.
Oof.
So that's crazy.
I immediately paused it. And I was like, Cody's going to hate this fingernail play scene.
Yeah, I got to say, I don't know if this one sounds like it's for me, but I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.
Nice.
What about you, Connor? What have you been watching?
So my movie and TV watching has been all over the place lately. I've been just randomly watching whatever. But weirdly, there's been one clear, unintentionally dark theme that has popped up across a few things I've watched. Aviation disasters. Not really sure what that means for me, but
well, it's kind of fitting with the very topical news with all the FAA and
I know,
yeah,
Newark Airport, etc. Yeah. So for whatever reason, this has popped up in what I've been watching. And first up, I watched for the first time ever, Final Destination.
Nice.
Directed by James Wong, came out in 2000. The logline is, after getting a premonition about a plane crash on his school trip, Alex, a student, saves a few of his classmates. However, their situation gets complicated when death starts chasing them. So I had never seen this before. And Mark, I hope I'm not spoiling anything you had planned for a future episode, but I know you've been quietly doing a full franchise playthrough of the Final Destination series.
Yeah, we've been watching one every other day this past week, and it's been a blast. I had only seen the first two all the way through.
Okay.
And I actually watched them relatively close to release time.
Oh,
so
really? Okay.
These were kind of formative horror movies for me.
Gotcha. And with Final Destination Bloodlines coming out, currently has a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes at the time of this episode, which I think has mainly confused us and sparked a lot of interest as a result of that confusion. So, with that coming out, it felt like the perfect time to watch the original and see where it all started. So with all this Final Destination talk, did this just become a Final Destination podcast?
I'm all right with it.
Yeah. The extent of my Final Destination knowledge up until last night was I knew characters somehow cheat death, and then death finds creative, really over-the-top ways to ultimately kill them. And, of course, I knew about that famous log truck scene from Final Destination 2. I think everyone kind of knows that one.
Oh, that's in 2. I thought that was in the original. Wow.
No, it's in the second one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Someone needs to rewatch.
I do actually. Yeah.
So I'm definitely glad I saw Final Destination. It felt like a key missing piece in my late 90s, early thousands pop horror movie watching career. It's not a very good movie, but the premise is very good. And I found the way the horror unfolds to be really clever and original. Like, there's no masked killer, and the question isn't will these characters die, but how. So I found that very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The Rube Goldberg-esque death sequences are shocking and ingeniously sadistic, with a few genuinely shocking deaths that really got a jump scare out of me when I watched.
Mm-hmm.
So file this under more of a guilty pleasure fun watch, but I enjoyed it along with the many, many early thousands tropes that make up the plot. So if that sounds up your alley, I would lightly recommend giving Final Destination a watch, which is available to stream on HBO Max.
Ooh, I would have to bump that up to a strong recommend. I feel
Strong?
like
Okay.
it's kind of like formative in a lot of ways. And I feel like there's so many horror franchises, they're indebted to Final Destination in a way.
I could see that.
I mean, a good example recently was The Monkey.
Okay. Yep. I remember you
Yeah.
talking about that one.
Mm-hmm.
So I've also been watching the Rehearsal season 2, directed by Nathan Fielder, and it recently came out this year, April 2025. The logline is Nathan Fielder gives people a chance to rehearse for their own lives in a world where nothing ever works out as expected. For our listeners, this is probably, I don't know, the third or fourth time we've talked about Nathan Fielder on our podcast. So it's no secret we're big fans, and Mark and I are forever grateful to you, Cody, for introducing us to Nathan For You back when it first came out.
Oh yeah, one of the most rewatchable series ever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to do it.
Definitely. So this season's main focus is on aviation safety, specifically how pilots and co-pilots' social dynamics can and do lead to accidents. And having that as a central theme, it almost feels like a completely different show than season 1. I don't know if you guys feel that way.
Totally.
Definitely.
So I was thinking about it, and if season 1 is like an intro to psych class, season 2 is like a PhD level dissertation on the current state of social norms, using pilots as a case study. Building off the groundwork of season 1, Fielder uses the construct of rehearsing to break down social barriers and get people to reveal more of their true selves than they ever really would in reality. So by heightening the artificial, he creates this space where honesty can surface, unfiltered, uncomfortable, and even if it's not entirely truthful in the way he goes about it, it somehow feels more raw and real than real life itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually find it hard to put into words what this show even is, which might be the point to some extent. What Fielder is doing feels like watching true art week in, week out, tapping into the human experience with an HBO-size budget and resources. He poses an interesting question. What's more absurd, this show or this life that we find ourselves in? So I highly recommend checking out The Rehearsal Season 2. It's incredible. It's available to stream on HBO Max, not Paramount Plus.
Nice.
It's nice to be able to call it HBO Max again, too.
It is, yeah. It's like finally the world makes sense again.
Full circle.
Yeah.
We have to just have it out here on the podcast for just a moment. I was the last one to catch the premiere of The Rehearsal Season 2, and you guys knew I was getting onto a plane.
Oh.
I didn't even think of that. I thought you had seen it already, honestly, by the time you got on the plane.
Hey guys, I'm going to watch The Rehearsal Season 2 on the plane home. Not a warning. Not one warning. Almost the first thing you see is like a horrific disaster on a plane.
Like exploding
It's true,
planes. Yeah.
Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Sorry, dude.
That's okay.
I do think it's worth mentioning too, though, for people who haven't watched season 1 or don't really know what to expect. The show goes to some very weird places.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
it may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I'm so locked in on this show. I don't know. He's gotten me with basically every show he's made, and so like he can kind of take me to these places, and I'm kind of willing at this point.
I think one thing to be said, he definitely does something new every time, and you never know what it's going to be. So I really enjoy that week in and week out.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
What about you, Cody? What have you been watching?
I recently got out to the theater to see Marvel's newest release, Thunderbolts, asterisk, directed by Jake Schreier. The logline reads, after finding themselves ensnared in a death trap, an unconventional team of anti-heroes must go on a dangerous mission that will force them to confront the darkest corners of their pasts. Thunderbolts might carry the baggage of lesser-known characters throughout the franchise, and all of us might be feeling, a little bit of fatigue in the genre. But with that said, it ends up being among the most efficient, entertaining, and cleanly executed entries of Phase 5 Marvel. It's a surprisingly tight, character-driven action film that doesn't lean too hard on MCU homework like other series do, though it would probably benefit you to refresh yourself on 2021's Black Widow and maybe the series Falcon and the Winter Soldier a little bit before you go into this. The action of the film feels very tactile. It doesn't get lost in digital space. The humor actually lands in most cases, and the visuals, especially around the villain Sentry and his terrifying void form, are genuinely striking. It channels both classic comic iconography and this sense of dark dread. I will say, though, that the arc of that villain is dramatically undercooked. A longer or even just a more efficient build-up could have made the psychological turn of that villain character far more impactful. It all happens way too fast. Florence Pugh, though, she easily anchors the film with her trademark blend of charm and melancholy. She's great. And though the tone occasionally wobbles, especially when Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Geraldine Viswanathan's characters veer into what I can only describe as cartoonishly evil territory. There are a lot of clever set pieces and emotional beats that do resonate. It's a reminder that post-Infinity Saga, Marvel can absolutely still pull off a grounded, mid-scale story. And Thunderbolts, it was a welcome surprise for me. It is still out in theaters if you want to go check it out. And I'm sure it will come to Disney Plus in the coming months.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. I don't think I've seen a post-Endgame Marvel movie, not even in theaters, but just in general, since No Way Back Home. No Way Home.
No Way Home. Yeah, the one of the Spider-Man. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's I think, like I said, there's been some level of fatigue with superhero films in general, not just Marvel, but like the genre was so overloaded, and it was so well done by Marvel for the longest time that here we are, and they have to find ways to make things feel different or return to form. And this one felt good to be back seeing a really good superhero movie. Next up, I caught a series called The Four Seasons. This is created by Tina Fey, Lang Fisher, and Tracy Wigfield. Just recently came out on Netflix. The logline reads, the decades-long friendship between three married couples is tested when one divorces, complicating the tradition of quarterly weekend getaways. The Four Seasons, it is a refreshingly easy watch. It's an intimate, character-focused kind of dramedy that starts really light and witty, but quietly deepens into something more reflective as the series unfolds. I did watch all 8 episodes with my wife. They're about half hour each. 2 episodes are tied to a different season. So the first 2 are spring, we go into summer, equaling 8 episodes total. And the show tracks 3 longtime couples navigating friendship, aging, and marriage with charm, warmth, and no shortage of sharp humor, as is typical with Tina Fey. What starts off as breezy and really low stakes ultimately touches on some heavier emotional truths, especially in the later episodes without spoiling anything, giving the show a gentle poignancy that really does sneak up on you by the end. It's rare to see characters in their 40s and 50s treated with this much emotional interiority without just being reduced to, parents or funny punchlines. The ensemble cast, anchored by Tina Fey and Will Forte, is uniformly amazing and hilarious. Steve Carell is in it. He is amazing. He does his own...
Yeah, he's great in it.
Yeah, he's great. Oh, have you seen this, Connor?
I have, yeah. We can talk about it in a second.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah, the whole thing feels like a film that was expanded in just the right way. It's not bloated, just leaves it more time to kind of breathe. And that makes sense as this was based on a movie of the same name directed by and starring Alan Alda, also starring Carol Burnett, which is kind of cool. I need to check that out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this show, The Four Seasons, won't demand a lot from you. It is generally, pretty goofy, but by the end, again, it earns your attention. I would recommend The Four Seasons, available on Netflix.
Yeah, Mark, I feel like you would definitely enjoy it.
Okay. Yeah.
I watched it. I see where I stand. I texted you guys about it in the group chat.
Oh, shit.
You don't remember, but that's okay.
I remember.
Sorry.
Okay, Mark's got my back on this one.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad you liked it, Cody. I felt the same way. I think the structure of it is really refreshing and interesting, how we're just given like glimpses into these weekends. We don't really see the in-between, but you see the characters kind of talking about what happened since last time. And like you said, I appreciate how we're just focused on these adult characters and who these couples are and how their relationships evolve at their stage of life.
As the three of us and our spouses are about to go on, a getaway all together, it's interesting to watch something like this and visualize how these trips can be made super awkward because you still want to invite everybody.
Oh, yeah.
But some people aren't together anymore. Yeah, so it's just an interesting scenario.
Keeping that in mind, too. I feel like you should watch it, Mark.
Okay. I'm in.
Well, thank you guys. Now let's move into our discussion about Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan, Miles Caton, and Haley Steinfeld, among many others.
Tell me who you are. Where you from?
I'm Sammy Moore. I'm a sharecropper from Sunflower Plantation. They call me preacher boy, count on my daddy being a pastor. Amen. I wrote this song for him.
The logline for the film reads, "Trying to leave their troubled lives behind, twin brothers return to their hometown to start again, only to discover that an even greater evil is waiting to welcome them back." Let's first start with our spoiler-free section as we always do. Mark, what did you think of Sinners?
I'm going to be really honest with you guys and anybody listening. This movie kind of flew under the radar for me when I was looking at the upcoming film release schedule of 2025. I had seen the trailer for Sinners a few times before other movies I was seeing at the theater, but I just didn't really feel like there was enough there to convince me to buy a ticket and see it in a theater. I was clearly wrong about this because it's no surprise now, but this film has been doing exceedingly well at the box office. And it wasn't until I saw the rapturous response, especially online, that I finally decided to pull the trigger and go out and see it. And before I get into my thoughts on the film, I just want to say that groundswell of support alone filled me with a lot of joy. And that's because we just don't get a lot of these moments very often anymore, where a film, especially an original film, reaches a cultural event status to the point where you have to go see it in order to be in on the discussion.
Yeah.
As far as my thoughts on the film, I really enjoyed Sinners. One of the things that I admire the most about it was its lack of concern with the idea of genre altogether. This film feels very Frankensteinian. I don't know if that's a word, but it borrows from lots of different types of movies, from period piece dramas to thrillers to horror to supernatural. It's wonderful to see a film that doesn't play it safe in that way, where it has a readily identifiable genre be so warmly embraced by the public. What really stood out to me was how the first half, and maybe even the first 2/3 of the film, really took its time with character development. And honestly, that's kind of my bread and butter, so to speak, when it comes to film, as you guys know. it feels like a luxury these days because there's so many modern stories that just rush past that part. But taking that time is so important. It's really what gets you emotionally invested in the story. By the end of the movie, I was genuinely concerned about these individual people and where their stories ended. Another thing that really surprised me about this movie, and if you don't want to know anything about it, I'd say just turn off the podcast now, was the incorporation of vampires. I remember texting you guys that I was going to see this movie, and Connor mentioned something offhanded about vampires. And at first I thought it was like an inside joke that I had missed out on or didn't remember or something. And so when they're finally introduced in the second half of the film, I was totally taken off guard. And I actually kind of feel fortunate to not have known that was going to play such a pivotal role in the movie, just because it added a really fun element of surprise.
Mm-hmm.
If I have one complaint about the film, it's that I kind of wish it was longer in some ways. We spend so much time getting to know Smoke, Stack, and Sammy that things really felt rushed once the vampires plotline comes into play.
Yeah, I agree.
Overall, it was a great experience, and I'm so happy that I got to see it with a crowd. Connor, what did you think?
Yeah, so well said. I mean, I was nodding my head at like everything that you were saying. I liked Sinners, and I sort of had two reactions to it. There's my immediate reaction to the movie where I also went in pretty blind, and I walked out thinking, okay, this was good. It's more of a straightforward creature feature than I was expecting. There was a messiness to the script and the pacing that was fun and seemed to make the movie go by fast and slow at the same time. It's a solid early summer blockbuster style movie that reminded me of adventure thrillers like Jurassic Park or The Mummy, with its crew of characters navigating how to survive and outsmart an ancient or supernatural antagonist. It feels made to be seen in a theater with a full crowd. You know, I liked it. And then there's my reaction to the movie after reading articles about it, thinking about all the details and symbolism of it in the weeks since I've seen it, and listening to interviews with Ryan Coogler. For me, I think I like everything that went into the movie more than I liked the movie itself, if that makes sense. It's clearly a very personal film for Coogler, and you can absolutely feel that.
Yeah.
I know you guys have done your own homework, but Coogler just seems like such a genuine, caring, intelligent, and thoughtful guy.
Yeah.
I really just love what he's doing. And to see the impact he and his films have on people and our culture at such a massive scale, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's a lot that I have really come to appreciate about it. Seeing the Delta Blues given such an important role on the big screen, and Coogler talking about how the Delta Blues might be America's most significant contribution to art and culture of all time. A love letter through time to Coogler's late beloved Uncle James, who was from Mississippi, and his older cousins with the characters of Sammy, Delta Slim, and the Smokestack Twins. The idea of the Faustian bargain that artists need to constantly contend with in their life and careers, etc.
Yeah.
I loved the world building of 1932 Mississippi. So cool to spend time with these characters in this time and place. Like you said, Mark, I wish we could have spent even more time with these characters, more time exploring this rich world, more time exploring and digging into all the thought-provoking ideas that are introduced. But hey, maybe that's just the mark of a good movie, to want more.
Yeah.
And I know we say this a lot on this podcast, but really, I'm just happy this movie was made. I'm embarrassed to say I actually haven't seen any of Coogler's other movies, and I know I need to. But after making 3 huge franchise films, it's so great to see a filmmaker like him turn around and make a deeply personal $100 million original IP cultural event movie that's main goal is to make people want to go out to the theater. And, that really makes me wonder, what more could I ask for? So I enjoyed it, definitely. What did you think of Sinners, Cody?
Yeah, that was great. I think you guys pretty much summed it up. I think Sinners has earned its place as a cultural event, not just for its bold genre mashup you guys have talked about, but for the way it reframes Black Southern identity through a supernatural lens. It invites all audiences across all cultures to consider, I guess, the parasitic nature of appropriation. The film's genre blending shift, evoking something like From Dusk Till Dawn, is more than just a stylistic flex. It's allegorical. It positions vampires as literal representations of whiteness feeding off marginalized cultures, history, survival. that is what elevates it. The horror doesn't erase the social fabric, it deepens it in this case. And I'm saying all this recognizing as well that, we are three white men doing this podcast. So we're going to do our absolute best to identify all of that deepening that the film is doing for this culture and all cultures. Its distinct use of aspect ratios and visual formats, it's not just an aesthetic play, but it reflects tonal shifts with rare intentionality, underscoring emotional and thematic transitions in a really utilitarian, effective way. It's not just for show. That said, I agree the third act does feel a little rushed with that genre shift happening, just late enough to kind of undercut its fullest potential. Yeah, like you said, Mark, I think that if it were simply lengthened to allow that more time to breathe, that could have helped. But there are a lot of considerations that the filmmakers have to make, of course. So even if that's the case, the film's originality, its cultural resonance, its unapologetic identity makes it a powerful entry into modern myth-making film canon. Sinners was great. I really enjoyed it. So let's delve in further and move into our scene selection for today, which we're going to call Spirits of the Juke Joint. And as usual, beware of spoilers ahead.
Is there anyone there?
Yes, what you see?
Spoilers! Right ahead!
Thank you.
Connor, would you like to give us the scene beats?
I would love to. So this scene starts around 53 minutes into the movie, and it runs for about 6 minutes. On the night twins Smoke and Stack, both played by Michael B. Jordan, launch their buzzing new venue, Club Juke, young Sammy, played by Miles Caton, is pushed into the spotlight with his guitar. Though he's a bit hesitant at first, he begins to play a song entitled I Lied to You, an emotional, defiant piece that challenges his father's push for a more devout, religious life away from music. What begins as a quiet, heartfelt performance gradually transforms into a powerful celebration. As the energy builds, Sammy is joined, both visually and musically, by spectral figures from different eras and cultural backgrounds, turning the moment into a vibrant homage to the legacy of marginalized voices in music history. As the music swells to its peak, the club is gradually overtaken by flames, less an act of destruction than a kind of transformation. The camera drifts outside, where Sammy's performance has quietly captured the attention of Remick, played by Jack O'Connell, and his vampire clan watching from the shadows with intent.
So as we always like to start out in our scene breakdowns, why this scene?
It's important to start at the beginning of the movie, which starts with a quote, and I'm going to read it here. So, there are legends of people born with the gift of making music so true, it can pierce the veil between life and death, conjuring spirits from the past and the future. This gift can bring healing to their communities, but it also attracts evil. So, essentially, this scene allows that dialogue to come to fruition. It's basically like a sonic journey through Black musical heritage, starting with the primal pulse of West African drums, and then the raw soul of Delta blues, then the soaring harmonies of gospel, and it even has 808 influenced hard-hitting beats of hip-hop. And so I think this montage is about music, but it's also a reflection of African American history, from the pain of slavery to the global impact it has on everyday culture.
I mean, it was clear watching this movie, you just feel transported as soon as this scene hits. It was like, whoa, like what am I watching? It was super magical just experiencing this in the theater. And in some ways, this scene does feel out of place in the movie, but in the best way possible. I mean, that is not knocking it at all. I think in an inferior film, this scene probably wouldn't have worked just to, get it to gel with everything. But it really does stand out as a centerpiece to the film, and it makes it incredibly memorable and really emotional at the same time. Like it's just a very visual and audio-based scene that packs a huge emotional punch.
Yeah. Everyone I talk to about Sinners mentions this scene.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I think it was the clear standout. It was fairly obvious what we were going to cover. And just to go off of what you were saying, Connor, I think it bridges the gap between the first, half to 2/3 of the film, where it's kind of like a standard period drama moving into more of a, horror genre film. And that shift could feel very abrupt, but I think this scene does a lot of the heavy lifting to bridge that gap and make it start to feel a little more surreal. And as they called it, as the filmmakers called it while making this scene, it was called the surreal montage.
Montage.
Right.
Yeah. So it does that work. And then of course it's also revealed at the end of the scene that the vampire Remick is drawn to Sammy's musical gift. And he recognizes how rare that talent is and how that can transcend time, both in the case of the film and sometimes in real life. And that harkens back to the quote that starts the film, like you said, Mark. It's often said that music is the closest thing we have to time travel. And with this scene being the musical centerpiece of the film, it's only right that this is the scene we cover.
Yeah. I think it's worth mentioning too, Cody. You bring up an interesting point. Remick, he is immortal because he's a vampire, right? So he can't really die. And so we can kind of assume that he has seen a lot of musical talents on the time that he has been alive. And so I'm sure that kind of even increases his thirst, so to speak, for this musical talent because he knows how rare it is.
And just putting some perspective on the overall production of this movie, this is sort of Ryan Coogler's blank check movie. So mentioned this a little bit, but he had just come off the major success of both Black Panther movies and essentially was just able to make a film that is deeply personal to him. And this is also his first true original IP movie. His first feature, Fruitvale Station, is based on a historical event. Creed is based off of the Rocky IP, and then Black Panther and Wakanda Forever, obviously both Marvel properties.
Yeah. It's really interesting because he's been such a high demand director. He had a very tight production timeline. The film went from pitch to production in 3 months. And Coogler actually wrote and Coogler actually wrote the script in only 2 of those 3 months, which is just crazy.
That's fast. Yeah.
Oh my God. That almost seems impossible. That's
right?
Wild. Yeah. Yeah. And after Wakanda Forever and a very, emotionally draining press tour, given the passing of Chadwick Boseman, Coogler spent a lot of time at home to decompress after that. And during that time, he found himself listening to blues music in an attempt to reconnect with one of his late uncles who was particularly fond of the blues genre. And he saw this filmmaking process as a way to also bring his uncle back to life, so to speak. And that is what served as the jumping off point for making Sinners.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And it's definitely worth listening to some interviews with Coogler talking about that, like just the emotional impact that his uncle had on him and really made its way into this movie. And then getting specifically into the production of this scene, which there's quite a lot going on.
Yeah.
Excited to dig into it. It's like an understatement. Because there was so much going on, there were 2 months of rehearsals for this scene alone, which again, crazy, so ambitious. And so director Ryan Coogler skipped pre-visualization or previs and went with a Sidney Lumet style approach where he physically rehearsed these scenes with the full team to map out the camera movement and troubleshoot on location. So every actor knew where they were going to be, they knew their marks, and they knew how that camera was going to flow through that scene so everything could work seamlessly.
And then the team, they had to bring in expert dancers, of course. There's so many dancers on set in the scene. And of course, musicians to authentically represent all of these cultural elements that we see, led by choreographer Akomen Jones, who was juggling this project and at the same time working on Usher's Super Bowl show.
That's insane too.
Yeah.
Wow. One other really interesting thing I found was that composer Ludwig Göransson and his wife Serena actually scored the scene live on set.
Oh, wow.
And I feel like that added a layer of immediacy and emotional resonance to the performance. And we'll dig deeper into that when we get to the musical components later.
So that's just, a general overview of the scene, but I think we can all agree that it is filled to the brim with Easter eggs, cultural iconography, ethnography, just so many visuals that make up the surreal spirits that appear in the Juke Joint. So we're going to do our very best to step by step walk through and identify the dozens of cultural spirits that we see, many in the background, starting with the first figures we see as Jamie Lawson's Perline starts to repeat the conjuring spirits quote that you said earlier, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
She's narrating it in voiceover and kind of begins talking about the past.
Right.
And the very first spirit we can identify is what's known as a griot zalam player. So the zalam is a traditional West African chordophone lute. And we think we're seeing across the scene a number of griot spirits, representative of African storytellers, praise singers, poets, and musicians. Their role was, and in some cases still is, to preserve the genealogies and oral traditions of their tribe or their people. This griot is seen playing a lute. So we don't get a great look at the instrument itself, but the closest match seems to be the zalam or maybe a molo. These are just two types of chordophone stringed instruments with that, kind of like rounded cylindrical neck that the strings are attached to. So that seemed to be kind of the closest match there.
And next up, we see a Zulu dancer, and they're wearing a very wide collar beaded bib.
Yeah, it kind of has a really striking image of this woman kind of doing this like cyclone dancing and just those white beads encompassing her full costume. It's really cool looking.
It is.
Yeah. And that kind of represents as part of the quote, the past. And at this moment, this is probably one of the coolest parts in the entire scene. This moment we move into, she says the words, the future. And this is when we start to get the mix in other periods of time.
Yeah, exactly. And the first one I recognized was Bootsy Collins, or basically an analog of him. He's a very, very well-respected funk bassist. It could be representative of another member of the Parliament or Funkadelic, also known as P-Funk, which is an eclectic American music collective of rotating musicians headed by George Clinton. And they draw a lot of influences from psychedelia, outlandish fashion, and surreal humor. They are one of the formative bands when it comes to the genre of funk music. So really cool to see him represented on screen.
Yeah. And it's like you said, Mark, it could be an analog. It's just this kind of Afrofuturism dressed character with this crazy guitar. And I don't know if you can ID the guitar, Mark, but it's that kind of like flying, what is it called? Isn't it like
flying
V guitar? And he's got this really high collared outfit with like blue tones and these incredibly large sunglasses on his face. He just looks like straight out of the future. And it was kind of the most striking thing you could possibly put on screen when Perline is talking about, spirits from the future.
Right.
And it really starts to open it up, and we start to see more of these spirits from the future. And it's almost like, who am I going to see next? And one of the other spirits that we see is a Run DMC analog. There's a character with like big glasses and a gold chain. And Run DMC, regarded as one of the most influential acts in the history of hip hop culture, especially one of the most famous hip hop acts of the 1980s, like super recognizable look. The group was among the first to highlight the importance of the MC and the DJ relationship. It's kind of representing DJ culture with this character. And another one that we see shortly after is this B-Boy LL Cool J analog character with the tracksuit and classic red bucket hat. So James Todd Smith, also known as LL Cool J, which everybody knows him as, is an acronym for Ladies Love Cool James, which I never knew before.
No,
It's
neither did
great.
I. Yeah.
And he's usually seen wearing some form of hat, especially like early on in his career. He was known to sport a red bucket hat made by Kangol. We don't get a great view of this spirit, but it's such an iconic hat, would lead us in the direction that this is probably an LL Cool J analog, combined with a b-boy or breaker in the context of breakdancing culture. So that's what this spirit is representing.
One of the other spirits that we see after that, it's a griot djembe, and this time the griot is playing a rope-turned, skin-covered goblet drum, and they're playing it with their bare hands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's hence the djembe, I think, is the type of drum.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And this is kind of where the past and present and future all start kind of weaving together, and the camera, steady cams over into the kitchen area where Grace is, and one of the first things we see is like the kitchen staff dancing with this woman who is twerking. And it's this woman wearing these big white sunglasses, an embroidered and patched varsity jacket.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this. Did you guys know that twerking was born out of the 1990s New Orleans bounce music scene, a hip-hop subgenre centered around call and response vocals and the endlessly sampled trigamen beat?
I didn't.
No,
That's cool.
I did not know where that came from, but I guess the first reference to twerking in a song is DJ Jubilee's Do the Jubilee All. And I guess that was like really the first reference to it. And then it gained popularity. We see Miley Cyrus doing it on stage. It gets another boost of popularity. So it has, a little bit of a deeper history than I thought it would.
Yeah, absolutely. And at this point, we're seeing spirits get into the late 80s, 90s, and even the 2000s. So the next spirits that we see up are these Cali drip dancers, like these guys wearing long white t-shirts. And we hear this synth whistle sound that is prominent throughout this section. And it sounds a lot like, a G-funk track, like Nothing But a G Thing by Dr. Dre, more of that West Coast hip hop that was very popular and big in the 90s and the early 2000s. And the dancers that we're seeing are doing the sea walk, and they're representative of that West Coast subgenre. So a lot of dance coming into play as well, and just in addition to the styling and the wardrobe.
Mm-hmm. As Grace kind of walks out of the kitchen and is doing a little dance, she walks towards her husband, Beau. And this is when we definitively see that there's a shift. There are other cultural spirits among us in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
As we follow Grace towards Beau, they're the Chow family, who are of Chinese ancestry. We see a Chinese Qin Shui opera performer, Qin Shui having influenced art and culture around the world for over 600 years, with its refined melodies, poetic lyrics, and stylized gestures combining music, drama, and dance into a sophisticated performance tradition. We're seeing these costume operatic performers, in a white and pink outfit, and then we're kind of seeing one behind Beau in the shadows, up against the wall. Really striking, interesting imagery there.
Another really striking character that we see, though it isn't an exact match, we believe this next spirit could most closely resemble a dancer from the Dan people, a Mande ethnic group residing in the northwestern Ivory Coast and neighboring Liberia. And they could be wearing a ceremonial poro mask, which is a sacred object protecting the poro against destructive and evil forces until the day they enter the spirit realm. So very fitting for this scene. The Dan Poro, as well as many other groups, create their own handmade masks. So we think this ceremonial garb of this spirit could represent a number of traditions and masking within Africa. Not just the Dan people, but just an example of what this iconography is meant to evoke. So a very recognizable mask, kind of long rope or beads coming off of it. Mm-hmm. And it really stands out in this scene with this dancer moving around.
Yeah, I think that was maybe the most memorable to me.
Yeah. Mark, I remember you texting and saying like that, in a way, it's kind of a little bit of a terrifying image there, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Protecting against destructive and evil forces.
Right. It's like a little creepy, almost unsettling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unsettling.
Yeah.
For sure. Yep.
Next, we see a ballerina that closely resembles a ballerina from the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. They are recognized by the U.S. Congressional Resolution as a vital American cultural ambassador to the world. Ailey's artists have performed for an estimated 25 million people in 71 countries on 6 continents, and their performances celebrate the human spirit through the African American cultural experience and the American modern dance tradition.
Now, you really need to watch this scene a couple times. It goes by fast when you're first watching it. I almost couldn't keep up with everything because you're just not expecting it. All these characters sort of come out of nowhere and you're like, oh my gosh, new era, new scene, new culture, but so cool to see it all together. And towards the end of this scene, there's a shift that happens where the juke joint is going up in flames. One of the most unforgettable moments in this scene is when the roof of the juke joint literally goes up in flames. And this was all shot live on the last day of filming. This sequence is featured prominently in the trailer, and it's a powerful symbol of destruction, but also transformation. Through the unshakable power of Sammy's music that we're hearing throughout the scene, the fire tears down the physical walls of the sawmill while igniting the memories and spirits that still linger there.
Yeah, absolutely. And according to Coogler, he wanted to make this literal burning of the juke joint pay homage to a common phrase among African Americans. According to Coogler, a cinephile might say that they were blown away by a movie. At a concert, you might say a performer burnt the house down. But for African Americans, we'll say the roof is on fire, which I love. So
cool.
That's a quote from Coogler right there. And he wanted a cinematic representation of the transcendent experience of music from different communities and cultures through history. And the burning of the juke joint is also dual purpose in that the vampire Remick is seeing this spiritual awakening, and he hopes to siphon Sammy's talent to summon his own Irish ancestors and playing into one of the general themes of the movie, once again, the appropriation of culture.
I think another really striking consideration about this scene in general is that it seemingly takes place all in one take, one long continuous take.
Yeah.
And I think it's really critical for this because it evokes the feeling of being at a powerful live show where time seems to stop, and it just visually communicates how something transcendent can emerge from an ordinary moment of all these people together.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to kind of start to break that, the long take aspect of this apart, I guess it was actually shot across 3 long takes and digitally stitched together at critical moments to make it seem like one long take. And the reason was, and granted, Coogler and team, they wanted to pull this off in one take, but because this sequence was shot IMAX and film being fed through the camera at such a rate that it can really only sustain about a minute and a half.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So beyond that, you can't really do a proper oneer at that length. So they had to kind of stitch it all together.
Got it. You can't tell at all.
No.
It's so
no,
seamless.
you really can't. You really can't.
And
yeah,
I think it goes back to something you said, Connor. It is kind of overwhelming that we see all these spirits, but in some ways, I think it kind of enriches the scene in a way. Because if it was kind of just reverse shot of all these different people and drawing a bunch of attention to it, I feel like it would lose some of that subtlety and wouldn't invite as much kind of deep diving into it as it does now.
Yeah, it's like exploration for the audience.
Right.
It's the stylistically, the long take on a Steadicam. It allows us to kind of weave in and out of the audience and discover all these figures really at the same time as these characters on screen. And huge shout out to Renard Cheren, who was the Steadicam operator of the film, and the scene could not have been accomplished without his work on it. And that kind of just briefly brings us to Just the different aspect ratios and formats of the film. Shot primarily Ultra Panavision 70, which has a 2:7:6 ratio, kind of like an ultra wide look.
Oh, cool.
Which makes the aspect ratio shift to IMAX, which is 1:3:1. Really opens up that vertical real estate of the frame that you're seeing in select cinemas that allow for that aspect ratio.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very effective jump in the sequence in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the performances from the film. I think it's probably worthwhile to start with Michael B. Jordan, who plays both Smoke and Stack in this film. I grew up in the 90s. I don't know about you guys, but to me, in some weird way, like the Lindsay Lohan performance from The Parent Trap is kind of like the bar to clear when it comes to like on-screen identical twins. And what's really hilarious about it is that for that film, she was able to do like the British and the American accent, so you could easily identify like which one was which. This is obviously a much more complicated and nuanced performance because they don't really have that accent to rely on it. They don't have any real physical manifestations to differentiate between the two. It all comes down to Michael B. Jordan's performance.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. That's like the twin performance that I hold in my head too as like the gold standard. So it's amazing. But I mean, watching this, never for one moment was I caught up thinking that it was like fake. You know, clearly there's some CGI going on and like the twin part of this where Smoke and Stack together on screen. Really amazing job by Michael B. Jordan selling that, because I'm sure he was either acting to nothing or acting to, you know, an actor that then there was a digital face replacement. Not sure how they did it, but he did an amazing job. And I think it's also interesting on the heels of our last movie we talked about, Mickey 17, another recent, you know, twin movie you could call it, to see a current high profile actor playing twins or the versions of the same character.
We have to dedicate some time here to talk about Miles Caton, who plays Sammy in the movie.
Yeah.
Amazing performance.
Dude, he was so good.
And he essentially had no significant acting experience other than a short film and some school plays. So this is his feature debut.
Wow.
So one interesting thing that I had read was that he practiced guitar for 3 months. So he's not pantomiming. He's actually playing the guitar.
I had to look that up too, because like he can play. Like he's very good. And I wanted to ask you specifically, like 3 months? I mean, does that check out for you?
Like, no, it doesn't.
But he's a musician. I mean, he comes from...
You're right. He is a musician.
That makes more sense
sure.
then. Because like he's incredibly good at guitar.
Because it's one thing to play guitar, but it's another thing to play slide guitar too.
Right.
They're very different.
Right.
Very different. And so the scene where he's driving in the car and playing and singing completely blew me away, because I was immediately looking at the way he was fingering like the neck board of the guitar to see if I like believed it, and it was spot on, and apparently it was a live take, so it was real. So I don't know how he did it.
That's incredible.
And we can't talk about the character of Sammy without at least name dropping the extraordinary real life Delta blues musician Robert Johnson. So in many ways, Sammy's an analog for Robert Johnson, who's famous for the tale that he sold his soul to the devil at a Mississippi crossroads in exchange for his supernatural musical talent. His haunting lyrics and raw guitar work helped shape American music and gave rise to an enduring supernatural legend in pop culture. This is tied to Sammy's talent as a generational curse and a gift.
Yeah, it's like as we explore different analogs throughout the film, this is definitely one that keeps coming up. And I mean, there's so many cast members in the film, in the scene, and really beyond Michael B. Jordan and Miles Caton, we have a huge ensemble cast that all very skillfully nail their marks and complex choreography in this really ambitious long take. We have Delroy Lindo as Delta Slim.
So good.
And his season performance adds that gravitas and authenticity to the musical atmosphere in the room. And then we have, the amazing Haley Steinfeld, where it's so fun to see her in a role like this after seeing something like True Grit,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then we have Wonmi Mosaku, we have Jamie Lawson, we have Lee Jun Lee, Yao, Omar Benson Miller, Jack O'Connell, just to name a few. And there's so many more beyond that in the room. Huge shout out to the entire cast within the scene and within Sinners as a whole. I wish we could cover every performance, but they all were amazing.
All right. So now that we talked through the performances, I'm going to flip this one over to Mark, our resident audiophile, to take us through the audio elements. A lot going on here sonically and musically.
So as I alluded to before, Ludwig Göransson created the score for this film. And he's actually worked with Coogler on both Black Panther and the Creed films. So they have a rapport together.
Mm-hmm.
They have a working relationship, and it really shows there's this perfect fusion of the visual style of Coogler mixed together with Göransson's score. And specifically, Göransson dove into blues history by traveling to Memphis with his blues guitarist father for research.
That's cool.
It's definitely his most personal score because it reflects his own musical roots and journey.
Nice. And, thinking about the blues and the Delta blues specifically, what components cue that from an audio perspective for us? Like what makes that sound, the Delta blues, for instance? Is there like a certain guitar or instrument that really cues that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a majority of the score is actually performed on a 1932 Dobro Cyclops resonator guitar. So I'm going to nerd out on you guys here for a little bit. So bear with
awesome.
me.
Let's hear it.
So a resonator guitar it's a type of acoustic guitar, but it uses a different method to amplify the sound.
Okay.
Because obviously back then they didn't have electric amplifiers at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so while a normal acoustic guitar relies on the vibration of its wooden top, the soundboard, to project the sound, a resonator guitar uses one or more spun metal cones called resonators that are built into the body of the guitar. And these cones vibrate in response to the strings, and the ultimate result is a louder and more metallic type of sound. So
that's cool.
Whoa.
It's usually kind of synonymous with blues music, not always, but it definitely conjures up that imagery when you see somebody playing this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you're playing alongside a really characteristic and loud piano, as well as these incredible vocals, I'm guessing you need that extra resonance.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
And speaking of vocals, I Lied to You. Amazing song, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the song itself in the scene. Ludwig and Coogler, they brought in songwriter, producer Raphael Sadiq, who worked with Ludwig to actually write the song.
Yeah, no, it's such a great song. And like we said, Miles Caton's singing voice, he just does such a great vocal performance with this. It really blows everyone away, audience included. We're kind of all just in awe seeing him do his thing. And lyrically, it's very interesting too. I feel like the line, they say the truth hurts, so I lied to you, which is kind of like the theme of the song, really captures the tension between love and betrayal, which is a theme that is woven into the fabric of this story from the very beginning. For Sammy, he had to be deceptive to his father in order to break free from the grasp of religion to pursue his life in music. And we see that play out in the choices that he makes in the later part of the film.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you guys. Like, it gave me chills when I heard this song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to kind of cap things off here with the audio section of the scene, I mentioned this earlier, but in order to maintain the energy and the spontaneity of a live performance, Göransson acted as a live DJ of sorts on set.
Oh, cool.
He adjusted the music in real time to match the actors' performances and the scene's evolving dynamics. And it said that this approach kind of allowed for more organic integration of the music and visuals while enhancing the immersive quality of the sequence.
Yeah, and I do know that musician Serena Göransson was also very, very heavily involved in not only the scoring process, but this kind of live construction on set. all hands on deck.
Yeah.
Making sure that these audio elements and all the transitions that need to happen between Delta blues to DJ to hip hop to all of these genres and subgenres that need to happen through the scene, they were all instrumental in, pun intended. They were all crucial in making sure that on the day that was playing out and that they have something to work with in the edit, basically.
Wow. Well, super cool. I mean, so fun to chat through this all, and I think we can wrap it up with some final thoughts. I will say I'm really excited to watch this movie again with my wife. So the first time I saw it, I was solo. I was working. You know how that goes. It's work, but someone has to do it. Got to do it for the podcast. But with everything that we've talked about today and everything that we've read in our homework and just putting that lens on it, I think it'll be really rewarding to see this again and, just look out for more moments and details that carry the deeper meaning that we've talked about here.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Connor, because once again, during my general take, I kind of alluded to this, but I just had the biggest smile on my face when I saw this scene because I immediately thought to myself, like, this is kind of what this whole podcast is about, to me at least.
Yeah.
It's about taking a deep dive into a scene that just captures the full potential of what cinema can do.
Yeah.
It gets people talking, it gets people excited. And so I'm so happy that we have this medium to talk about it and really celebrate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the spirits of the Juke Joint scene in Sinners, it will stand out forever as a really powerful fusion of storytelling, of music, visuals. It's layered with deep symbolism. This scene captures the soul of blues while also celebrating the lasting influence of Black music and the strength of its creators. It's got stunning choreography, long take execution, and it almost feels like a live performance. And it really pushes the audience to not only appreciate the art in front of you, but also confront the deep histories that it carries. This was a great one. So thank you guys for your thoughts. It has been so fun to talk about this scene in Sinners. And thank you to our listeners and fellow movie enthusiasts for reliving this scene with us. Do you have a favorite scene from Sinners? You can email us at contact@scenecraftpodcast.com with any of your thoughts or comments, or follow us on most social media platforms at Scenecraft Podcast for any scheduling updates and news. You can support the podcast by leaving us a review or star rating on your platform of choice. A very special thanks to Jordan Summerlad for our theme music. This has been Scenecraft, where we break down the craft behind our favorite scenes. See you all next time.